The F format has finally solidified, and now we have our solid tier 1 decks. Now that Charizard has taken that number 1 spot, we can start looking at the other decks of the format to see what can compete with it and what can dethrone it. Today we'll be going over a deck that's existed in the meta for a long time, but just hasn't really been making waves as much as it used to. With the introduction of the F format though, that's definitely changed. Today we're going to go over Arceus decks. Hello everybody and welcome back to Poke Primer. My name is Voiddyn, and this is the show where we kind of just go over certain decks in the meta of the current format and explain how to play them and give you some good starting deck lists. Today we're going to see a deck that completely disappeared from the meta and is now coming straight back in with the rise of Charizard. Today we're going to be going over Arceus VStar lists. Just a heads up, the first list we are going to be going over is Arceus VStar and Giratina VStar. This seems to be the strongest of the two decks, and if you're looking to play a meta or number 2 deck, this is probably it. While this deck may seem kinda complicated when you first look at it, the deck overall has some really cool plays, and honestly, is not too bad to get a hang of. The main Pokemon of the deck is Arceus VStar. Arceus VStar is a V-Star Pokemon with 280 HP and has the attack Trinity Nova. For 3 colorless energy, it deals 200 damage, and you may search your deck for up to 3 basic energy cards and attach them to Pokemon V in any way you'd like, then shuffle your deck. It also has the very strong ability Starbirth. Starbirth is a V-Star power that says during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. This ability is huge for getting yourself out of sticky situations. Being able to find any card you need at any time without wasting your supporter is very huge. Now there are different variations of the deck for Arceus VStar. We see a bunch of people playing things such as Armarouge and the fire version of the deck, which we'll go over later on in this video. But the Pokemon that's paired up most with Arceus VStar and performs the best is Giratina VStar. For those that don't know, Giratina VStar is a V-Star Pokemon with 280 HP and has the attack Lost Impact. Lost Impact does 280 damage for a grass, psychic, and colorless energy. But if you do use this attack, you have to put 2 energy attached to your Pokemon into the Lost Zone. Giratina is a heavy hitter and definitely knocks out a big majority of the format. Not only does it have this Lost Impact attack, it also has a V-Star power of its own, Star Requiem. For a grass and a psychic, you can use this attack only if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone. Your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out. You can't use more than 1 V-Star power in the game. Now, both Arceus VStar and Giratina VStar have very powerful V-Star powers. Now, you might be asking, when do you use one over the other? And the answer is that as you play the game more, you'll understand that you may not always need to Starbirth. You may not always need to search for 2 cards out of your deck, and if the game carries on and you absolutely need it, you can always Giratina VStar to close out a game. Obviously, this isn't as straightforward as a lot of people would wish, so honestly, it's going to be taking some time, and it's a little bit of user experience to find out when one is used over the other. Now, let's talk about 2 Pokemon that are played together in this deck that kind of make up the engine of the deck. This is classic Arceus gameplay that's been used for a while, ever since Arceus was good back in the past. So what Arceus decks tend to use is the combination of Barrel with Industrious Incisors, which says once per turn you may draw cards until you have 5 in your hand. What it lets you do is once during your turn you may Nest Stash, which shuffles your hand and put on the bottom of your deck. If you put any cards on the bottom of your deck this way, draw a card. So this card serves 2 functions. The first thing it does is it enables our Barrel. It allows us to draw 4 cards by simply tucking our hand to the bottom of the deck. The other thing it does is it guarantees Arceus VStar will ramp energy onto our Pokemon. One of the biggest problems with this deck is when you're sitting there and you're trying to get energy out, but you have none left in deck, because the rest of it's either in prizes or in your hand. By using this Nest Stash ability, you're able to shuffle those energies back into your deck, which will end up being huge down the line when you're running short on energy. Now let's go over the list. You'll run 20 Pokemon, starting with 4 Arceus V, 4 Arceus VStar, 3 Bidoof, 3 Barrel, 2 Giratina V, 2 Giratina VStar, 1 Iron Leaves EX, and 1 Squovet. For trainers, you're going to be running about 26. You'll be running 4 Iono, 4 Boss's Orders, 3 Judge, 1 Eerie, 4 Nest Ball, 4 Ultra Ball, 1 Switch, 1 Prime Catcher, 1 Lost Vacuum, and 3 Lost City. And finally for energy. For energy, you're going to be running 14. You'll be running 5 Grass Energy, 4 Psychic Energy, 4 Double Turbo Energy, and 1 Jet Energy. Now, one of the biggest things that people misunderstand with Arceus lists is that Arceus is still your main attacker. Even though you're ramping onto other Pokemon and other Pokemon V-Stars, you still attack with Arceus. 200 damage is still a lot of damage. It also has a ton of health, and it sets you up to have safer late games. With keeping this idea of a safer late game in mind, you're able to play disruptions such as Judge and Airy to kind of mess with your opponents. You're also playing 3 Lost City to make sure that you can kind of enable that Giratina V-Star and play even more disruption in the future. But just because you're playing control elements, don't put yourself into a bad spot just to reduce your opponent's hand. When attacking with Giratina, make sure you don't get rid of too many Grass Energy or too many Psychic Energy. If you have the choice of whether or not to get rid of Grass or Psychic and you don't know which one to get rid of Psychic Energy. Honestly though, you need to make sure you have both ready, especially because the fact that Iron Leaves may come down, and if you have 3 Grass in play, it allows you to move energy straight to it to attack to knock out that Charizard right away. All in all, this deck isn't very easy to play, but it's also not impossible to learn either. There's a lot of growing pains, but honestly, once you get used to it, Arceus V-Star is one of the coolest decks to play in the format. Now that we've gone over Giratina V-Star, which seems to be the more competitive way to play Arceus V-Star, I'd like to go over one of my favorite versions of Arceus V-Star in the format, which is using Armarouge. Armarouge is a card that came from Palladian Fates that has the ability Fire Off. As often as you'd like during your turn, you may move a Fire Energy from one of your benched Pokemon to your active Pokemon. This allows you to get around Arceus V-Star's restriction of only being able to attach energy to V or V-Star Pokemon. Some of the coolest attackers in this list are stuff such as Delphox V, Gouging Fire EX, and even Armarouge EX. But one of the coolest combos that you get out of this deck is being able to use Magma Basin along with Radiant Heatran. Radiant Heatran is a Radiant Pokemon with 160 HP that has the attack Raging Blast. This Pokemon does 70 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. It costs 1 Fire and 2 Colorless Energy. By using Radiant Heatran in combination with Magma Basin, you're able to bring energy back from the discard, put damage counters on Radiant Heatran, and move it around with Armarouge. This deck is super sweet and one of my favorites to play currently in the format. Now, the list I'm going to give you doesn't have some of the cool techs that others play in the list, but this deck is awesome all the same. For Pokemon in this list, you'll be running 4 Arceus V, 3 Arceus V-Star, 2 Charcadet, 2 Armarouge, 1 Armarouge EX, 1 Bidoof, 1 Bibarel, 1 Gouging Fire EX, 1 Delphox V, 1 Mew EX, 1 Radiant Heatran, and 1 Squawkabilly EX. You'll be running 28 Trainers, 3 Iono, 3 Professor's Research, 3 Boss's Orders, 4 Nest Ball, 4 Ultra Ball, 2 Capturing Aroma, 1 Lost Vacuum, 1 Super Rod, 1 Switch, 1 Choice Belt, 1 Maximum Belt, and 4 Magma Basin. For energy, you'll be running about 13. You'll be running 9 Fire Energy, and 4 Double Turbo Energy. This deck is all about staying consistent and being able to make sure that even after you lose a Pokemon, you're able to have another one ready to go. You also have varied attackers that can attack based on the situation. Does your opponent have a Dialga V-Star out in the active? Use your Mew V's genome hacking to copy their V-Star attack and take an extra turn. They'll never see it coming. If you need to take a big, quick knockout, Gouging Fire with Blaze Blitz and a Maximum Belt can actually knock out a Charizard. Like Arceus V-Star Giratina V-Star, this deck kind of plays the same where you want to get your setup of Bidoof, Bibarel, as well as your Arceus Vs, V-Stars, etc., and kind of just ramp to your other Vs. You can always play an Arceus V-Star and ramp to another Arceus V-Star, and move around the energy as you need with Armarouge. This deck is super sweet and kind of gives you a different playstyle and lets you break the rules, kind of. So if you're looking to play something a little bit different and love the Arceus V-Star type of thing, feel free to give this a try. The cool thing about Arceus V-Star is that there's a lot of Vs that people forget about. So maybe you'll find the next V-Star deck that'll dominate the format. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Arceus V-Star video. I kind of went over 2 decks without really going too much into detail with either, But honestly, both decks are super fun and something that you could bring to a cup, and as long as you get some practice in, can beat the top decks of the meta. Thanks for watching, and leave a comment, and tell me what deck you'd like to see me do next. Also, feel free to like the video if you liked the video, and subscribe for more Poke Primers like this. Thanks guys, and I hope you have a great day.